Thank you for tuning into this video on the Articles of Confederation. Now, the Articles of Confederation is really the first U.S. Constitution. During the American Revolution, they had to come up with a way to govern the country, so they came up with this. And the key word is confederation. A confederation gives more power to the states and less power to the federal government. A federal government, or federalism, gives more power to the federal government and less power to the states. That's what we have today. Now, really afraid of monarchy. They were afraid of giving too much power to a central authority. So they felt like more local government would be better for the people. This was pretty short-lived, though, because it doesn't work very well. And giving less power to the federal government makes it a more difficult process to function. And eventually it gets replaced by the U.S. Constitution. So the U.S. Constitution is actually our second constitution in America. Now, some important information that you'll see noticeable changes with later. First of all, it's unicameral. This means that there's one legislative body called the Congress. There are not two legislative bodies like we currently have in the United States. In the U.S., we have and the Senate. In the Articles of Confederation, they just have Congress on everything. And it takes a lot of votes to decide on stuff. Now, the people that go to Congress are chosen by the state governments, which means the people are even further away from choosing their congressional members. So instead of the people choosing who goes to Congress, the people choose their local government, and their local government chooses Congress. Mentioned earlier that it's difficult to get anything done in the Articles of Confederation. You need 9 of 13 states to approve any law. And to even change the Articles of Confederation, you need every single state to agree to it. So every state can basically veto a big change. So if they wanted to add a second house to the legislative branch, they couldn't do it. And in fact, they tried to add the power to tax, because under the Articles, Congress can't raise taxes. So they can't raise any money. So they can't pay for anything. And they try taxes, but Rhode Island continually votes no. And that's a really small country basically saying the rest of the country can't be taxed. Also, some interesting characteristics of the Articles of Confederation: it has no judicial branch, which means local governments take care of all disputes. It has no executive branch, so there is no one to really enforce the laws, and there's definitely no president like we see it today. They called the leader of their Congress the president, but they really weren't the president as we refer to today. There was no power to tax, already mentioned that. They couldn't regulate any commerce or trade, and really, the states had all the power. States could raise their own military, states could trade with other countries, they could print their own money. It was really difficult to handle that, in fact. So imagine you live in one state, if you move to another state, you got to change currency. Or if you order something from another state, you got to change currencies to be able to pay for that. It's a very confusing process, and nobody's money was easy to understand. So all of those were kind of flaws that led to the Constitutional Convention and creating a new constitution. But also, they were just struggling economically. The federal government couldn't do anything to try and get themselves out of this, basically a depression that they had from being at war for so long. And the states kept fighting with each other. There were disputes over territory, disputes over currency, and it led to a lot of difficult situations where they couldn't necessarily pass a law. And lastly, what really pushed it over the edge is there was a rebellion in Massachusetts. A group of farmers, upset at the government for taking their land, basically rose up, gathered weapons, gathered people, and were going to overthrow the government of Massachusetts. But the government couldn't respond. Massachusetts wasn't responding well, and the national government can't raise a military. So how are they going to respond? So in the end, it ends up being a group of elites that have to fund and pay for a military, a militia, and they fight that rebellion, and they put it down. But it really shows that there's a lot of flaws with the Articles. the federal government can't get anything done and can't help anybody in that way. So they meet at the Constitutional Convention to change the Articles of Confederation. And they decide, well, these can't be changed. We're going to have to just create a new constitution, which they do. And I'll be covering that in the next